Okay, the plan to only wear things I've made. Awesome idea! Problem is, it only leaves me with 3 dresses, 2 of which show my bra. So, I've got out some matching fabrics, and I'm going to see what I can make. I made sure all my pattern pieces would fit before I cut anything out, because even if this is only a bedsheet, I'd like not to waste it. To tell you the truth, I've gone off the idea of dressing in bedsheets, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be very good at the beginning. This is only half a duvet cover as well, so I can't even donate it. For this pink fabric, I'm trying out the basic close-fitting bodice block that I made from the instructions from Winifred Aldrich's Metric Pattern Cutting for Women's Wear. I didn't really put much thought into the pattern beyond testing the fit of the block, and that's really going to hurt me later, but I am doing this to learn. I didn't put seam allowance on these pattern pieces because it seemed to work well enough for making trials, but I did start to wonder if that tiny bit of possible accuracy was worth the fuss and time. I'm also trying out different ways to mark up the patterns, and for this one I used some iron erasable pens that I originally got for patchwork. Maybe it's not such a concern if you're hand sewing tiny pieces, but just this one top used up a whole ink cartridge. There's a possible plan to get a pattern cutting projector for the hack space, even if it's just me buying one and sticking it to the ceiling. It would certainly save a whole lot of paper, and it's something new to try and let people try it when they come. I'd just like to give anything a go if it might make things a bit faster. At least the actual cutting goes fast. I do prefer scissors to a rotary wheel. For my loose-fitting bodice block, I've got this fitted sheet that I'm salvaging the elastic from. I've probably got more elastic than I'll ever need, just from places like this, but it all goes in the notions pile. I've even started taking the stuff off the disposable dust masks at work. I'm trying out drawing with a chalk pencil with this one, and it'll probably last me a whole lot longer. The line is less fine, but I really don't know if that'll matter. I'm just worried about it rubbing off and me not having any lines to sew on. I was a bit unsure about doing a skirt pattern because I think of myself as not the kind of person that wears them. But I'm already in dresses, so it can't be too strange. I guess I just wanted to do myself a full set of basic blocks. And if I do find myself making more skirts, I'm definitely going to need this. I've already got tights that make them wearable at work, because I can't have uncovered skin in the production area, and it would be a real pity if I wasn't wearing my fun, colourful tights. I'm not really comfortable with showing off my legs quite yet. Trousers are the opposite problem. I wear them most of the time, but I don't think I've ever made a pair from a block. I've done commercial patterns and very basic pairs made from rectangles, but I've never really been happy with them. The knit fabric for this t-shirt was the biggest struggle when it came to marking the fabric. The chalk just pushes it around, and the white iron erasable one would make lines on some stripes, but barely show on others. I ended up using the pen, but I'm not sure I'd want to use either again. Maybe this is one area where seam allowance is just better? Because I had all my seam lines marked out and no standard seam allowance, I found I had to pin along the lines and be very careful about shifting things too much. I think this is where I started to realise the folly of my ways. I mean, what's the point of marking everything out when you only get that improved accuracy by basting all the seams as well? I need to either go all the way or accept that I'm not all that bothered by a few millimetres here and there. If I make a corset, maybe it's worth it, but till then I've learned my lesson about choosing the practical option. Sometimes, in my sewing at least. The iron erase pen did mostly disappear, but it left a faint white line. It's helpful when you iron over too much, but I'm not seeing the advantage over pens that wash out for anything you can stick through the machine. I tried to iron all my seams flat and then into the position they would hold later. Because I hadn't planned ahead for seam finishing, I ended up just zigzagging over all the raw edges, and they'll work, but they're not pretty. I could have done a whole lot better with this. One of the guys who knows about sewing machines at the Hackspace is currently getting the industrial overlocker set up and usable, even making a needle guard so it's nice and safe, and I'm definitely going to be trying that for seam finishing. We don't have any ballpoint needles for it right now, but when we do, I'm going to try it on everything. I'd kind of forgotten how hard armholes are to sew. It's definitely easier with a standard seam allowance. Starting to see a theme here. I tried pinning it like the straight seams and sewing along the line, but I wasn't happy with the results. I'm glad I'm going into this trying to learn, because I sure am doing that. I basted the sleeves in with some pretty thread to keep me happy, and it isn't really that bad. I guess this is one place I can take the time and have it be worth it. I used a walking foot to make the stretch sewing easier, and switched out my sharp needle for a ballpoint. The stretch stitches on my machine don't look that great close up, but they do the job. I'm wondering why I didn't do this before now. I just folded all the edges down and hemmed them that way. I do want to learn other techniques, but I'm leaving that for the future. For the trousers and the skirt, I sewed bias binding to the seam line and hand sewed it to the inside. It's not the most professional looking choice, but it's neat and it seals up all the raw edges. I might have to look into how to do waistbands for the future. And now you get to see my awkward attempt at a catwalk. I was actually in a fashion show once as a teen on my fashion and textiles course, but I wasn't very good at it. I guess practice makes perfect? The stretch top and the skirt are both things I'm really proud of. They don't look homemade to the casual observer, and I really am digging the overall look. I was even surprised by how easy it was to move in the skirt, even though I do have to get into my car like a lady. The knit top doesn't just drop down from the bust like a lot of the tops I buy do, and it flares out enough at the hips that it's not constantly riding up. I'm really looking forward to playing around with fun draping designs. The loose top ended up turning into a jacket because I hadn't left enough seam allowance for any kind of button placket. It has been one of the most useful items because I can wear it over a dress or another top, but that's not quite what I was aiming for. Now for the less successful half of my work. The close-fitting bodice fits in itself, but I tried to make a fitted two-piece sleeve to go with it, and it just doesn't fit. I've got pretty big upper arms. That's just where I carry a lot of fat, and I'm going to have to change things so the pattern takes that into account. The trousers aren't so bad, they're definitely wearable, but I need to do an adjustment to make room for the junk in my trunk and stop them from giving me such a builder's bum when I crouch down. It covers how to do things in my book, but I didn't know if I'd need to till I saw it. All in all, I'm pretty happy with how things went, and the last task of the day was printing out some patterns to try next time. I like to think I've learned a lot with this project, and my next goal will probably be adding another colour to the mix around. If you enjoyed this, I'd really appreciate a like, and if you want to see more, subscribe. I'll see you next time.